Thank you. Senator Sterle, are you in a position to proceed?
How are we, gentlemen?
Senator, we've identified the brief and we're just trying to print it. I do have a copy, I believe, electronically in front of me if you wanted to go to it. I'm happy to do my best to answer those questions, unless others need a copy in front of them before we...
No, I think that's great, Mr. Newton. Well, we've tried to see if we could... Anyway, let's just go.
Apologies, there are some technical issues that are causing us some
Senator,
grief.
if you photocopied your copy and you want to
Yeah,
table
I'll
it,
just check with Michael. How'd we go, Copper? Oh, I tell you what, it's written in, it's so small, but anyway, good luck. I'm having struggling, but we can
Well,
provide.
let's table what you got so that
Yep.
we got other senators can...
All right, well, I've got that, I'm sorry, it's Mr. Brahman?
Yeaman.
Mr. Yeaman, I'm sorry. Okay, well, let's go back just so for, just refresh my memory, and it's talking about the Burrowway to Kirban section, right? And I'd said I'd quoted that the corridor subsection is not contentious at this time, and I'm quoting. However, ARTC has identified a study corridor that's up to 5 kilometres wide. Further analysis and landowner consultation is required prior to further refinement. That's what the briefing note says. Right. So then I asked, could you tell us who deemed this section not to be contentious at this time?
So, Senator, I would just add one clarification. As I read the brief, the copy I have, it says not considered as contentious at this time. So there is to explain for the committee, there are 4 or 5 sections that are identified and an assessment has been made by the department essentially around the level of community concern in relative terms across those sections. And this section is considered less sensitive than the one prior to that. That's the reference that I have in front of me. Right. That would have been a judgment made by the relevant analyst in the department, and I wasn't...
By who, sorry?
By the relevant analyst in the department who wrote the brief.
Okay. All right, so the
and it would have been based on many of the factors that Mr. Fullerton discussed earlier, which was... So I can't speak for the...
Oh,
for the
so what would have happened? The analysis in the department would have consulted closely with the ARTC and Mr. Fullerton's
We would have
team.
been involved in the various community consultation exercises that ARTC and been receiving feedback on those, and we would have aggregated that information and provided advice to the minister based on that.
Right, okay.
And our own sources so far as we have.
but to be clear, Senator, because I'm just reflecting on a comment or thinking about a comment the Chair made earlier, because either of us were not involved in the preparation of that brief, to be absolutely clear, what we should take on notice is whether informing that assessment, we largely took the advice of the ARTC.
That's what you've cleared up. That's fine. I'm not out to hang anyone in the department.
Or whether you want us to know how much of our own independent on-the-ground type of assessment we made, just to be crystal clear on that part.
Dr. Kennedy, you've made it, Mr. Yeoman's made it very clear. The person who wrote that and used that terminology or wording follows on from the information that was sought from the ARTC.
That is my best assumption at this time, but without having spoken to that individual, I can't be 100% sure.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. But Mr. Fullerton's nodding out.
Procedurally, colleagues, you've got no objection to tabling this. There's been no objection. Senator Sterle.
Okay, so I'll go back on... It said that there must be more landowner consultation, but there wasn't. So I see that as a failure to consult. So can you let me know how this advice, Mr. Fullerton, to the minister be considered accurate, given that there was failure to include key information for the minister's decision?
Well, the question, sorry, Senator, the question is?
Well, how could you say that the minister could make an accurate consideration when not all the information was provided? There wasn't the consultation.
Yeah.
Well, we believe there was the consultation, and it was a comprehensive process went through with community consultation over a period of 12 months to arrive at the conclusions that were arrived at for advice to the minister.
Senator, if I may add one point of clarification as well. As I read the recommendation in the brief from the department, this was seeking approval to proceed with the current alignment at that point. Yep. There was always going to be a process, as Mr. Fullerton has outlined, of then further refining that corridor down from the 5 kilometres or the 3 kilometres down to the more narrow corridors. And we were emphasising that it would be important through that process that further consultation was undertaken, which I believe is the case.
But I went back to the minister signed off on it on the 7th of November 2017. And at that time, I'm led to believe, unless you can correct me, that it didn't need further, it actually said further analysis and landowner consultation is required to further refinement. Okay? And I'm saying that that advice wasn't given to the minister. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong and I'll move on.
So I may be misunderstanding, Senator. So our advice to the Minister from the department,
When?
in the brief you've referenced, which was 2017, November,
Right.
was to proceed with the corridor as proposed by ARTC
Yep.
at the time in the Broad, and then that there should be continued ongoing consultation beyond that point in further refining the corridor down to that narrower corridor.
Okay, but I'm trying to say is what the preferred Narrabri to Narrabri preferred corridor, which the minister made the statement with all due respect, and I have a lot of respect for Minister Chester. In fact, I think he's been the best one of the lot. I don't know who got to him, but unfortunately I wish he was still the minister, but he's not. That's coming from me. So he had made an announcement and decision, but further information had come to light after. That's all I'm just trying to say. I don't believe the minister got the full story because it should have been further analysis. It said that.
The advice of the department was there should have been further analysis post this decision. So we supported in this brief that the Minister agree at this stage to the alignment as proposed.
Yeah, but it's all
further
coming back
consultation
to,
beyond
yeah,
that.
you know, I understand. It's all coming back to, I can't let this go. Okay, what's the point of going out there, having consultations and doing all that? We're not going to listen to the people anyway. And then I say my words, I don't believe the ART, well, no, I do, sorry. When the ART says we've got broad community support, well, you know, when you're going outside and it's not affecting people's land like it's affecting other people's land, of course they're going to support it. So I think it's a little bit mischievous myself. Anyway, if anyone thinks any difference, jump up or
First
forever.
piece of commentary of the day, you've been very good up until then.
Yep. Well, I'm thinking of those poor devils out there. I just think you're going to consult with them, you're going to listen to them and then act. Okay, so let's go to another attachment there, B, in relation to the Burraway Curbin section. And if you can't read it, you can own up, and I had trouble reading it too. For those listening, it's because it's so small, but anyway. Now, quotes in that attachment B, it says, as both options were close to each other, so we'll go back to them again, and the common landowners who are directly affected by both routes, ARTC has recommended that a corridor up to 5 kilometres wide encompassing both options be carried forward to the next stage. The preferred alignment would then be selected following further landowner consultation and, where practical, additional geotechnical examination. So I ask, I'll come back to you, Mr. Fulton, and if anyone else wants to help, or Dr. Kennedy or crew, can you explain what you are referring to when you say both routes?
Which I'm
Sorry,
confused.
Senator, this is a briefing from the department that you referenced earlier. There's an attachment in there. Senator, without having, this is a brief, as you'd appreciate, from some time ago, 2017. We hadn't
I understand.
to address these questions. So I need to take on notice what the two routes refer to because I don't have the rest of the context.
Sure, because I just want to know what were those
to give you a
routes.
confident answer.
Okay. So what I can tell you is option 109 is not mentioned explicitly, okay, in the attachment E, which is the preferred corridor report. You've got that there. Can you find that? Are we in agreement that the preferred corridor report doesn't mention option 109?
Senator, just glancing at it here, it looks like quite a lengthy attachment, and without being able to read it on the spot, I'm not in a position to confirm that
look,
quickly.
Okay.
I have no reason to doubt that, Senator, but I...
Sure. But Chair, I'll seek your guidance here, and I don't expect the officers, I don't even know how many out the back, but normally there's a good swag of them, which is great if they can all help. But it's not as though we're raising an issue that's just fallen or come out from under a rock. It's been a contentious issue over a number of Senate estimate sessions. And Chair, through you, I'm just showing frustration. I would have hoped that the department would understand that we're still asking questions. People are still cranky out in the bush, and this just does not assist at all.
Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry for talking while you're interrupting Senator Rice, but
No.
anyway.
I note your feedback, Senator. Fair point.
Sorry, Chair, in all fairness to you, you were distracted.
Well, Mr Kennedy seems to have dealt with it, Dr Kennedy. If there's any efforts, we're still here after lunch, if there's
So
any
let's go
efforts
back.
to resolve some of this.
Let's go
should
back.
be made.
All right, let's go back. So are we in a position, the officers, can you confirm that option 109 is not mentioned explicitly in the preferred corridor report?
Senator Phil Smith, Executive Director, Inland Rail and Rail Policy. Again, as Mr Yeaman indicated, it's obviously a lengthy document. However, page 16 seems to indicate in the legend, and again, it's a bit blurry from the printing, option 109.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry about the quality of it. It's very hard. Okay, so I'll
page
go...
16 seems to indicate there was an option 109 mentioned in the report.
Sorry,
Page 16.
right. It is there.
Well, it might look at
This
it.
is the preferred corridor report.
So it's got concept alignment, option
Yep.
107, and then option 109.
Right. So it's in page 16?
Well, that's the first time I've spotted it.
Okay.
But I haven't, without a word search or anything, it's a bit hard to pick up.
Okay, because it all goes back to where I say from that attachment B, as both options were close to each other and the common land units who are directly affected by both routes, the ARTC has recommended the corridor up to 5 kilometres wide. And I went through all that, and it said the preferred alignment would then be selected following further landowner consultation and, where practical, additional geotechnical examination. But if those options weren't mentioned or offered to the people, how could the report be right? Or how could the statement to the report be correct? And if it is there and I've missed it, I surrender, you've got me, and I will stop asking questions around it. And if you need a bit more time, Mr Smith, I get that. So shall we move on a little bit more? But it's all around the same issue, Chair.
Yes.
So look,
You've got the call to lunch and 10 minutes afterwards if you choose.
Yeah, no, I'll be finished by then, maybe, I hope. Okay, so I want to refer you to the other attachment A of the brief, and it's a map headed Narromine to Narrabri. I think a spacer fell in there and it doesn't quite come out like that, but you've got that map. And the cover sheet to the brief states this is the recommendation of a preferred corridor.
Yes, Senator?
Okay, thanks, Mr Yeaman, that's good. There's also a map sent to the New South Wales Farmers Association by the ARTC on the 18th of December 2018, which shows the current study area that the ARTC is working within. You got that? I'm sure I gave you both maps. Where's mine? Yeah, we got it. You should have it. You got that? Yep. Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay, you've got that. Right, then, I'll come to you, Mr Yeaman, it's probably easier. Is it not the case that the study area shown on these two maps is different? So where's the other one? Well, I made it hard as possible for you because they're different sizes. Don't worry, I made it hard as possible for myself. So I would ask that they're two different ones? So just while everyone's looking, we've got two maps there.
Senator, they certainly are different formats, but I don't immediately see a difference in alignment. I don't see a different
You
alignment.
say they're the same?
There may be, Senator, there may be some slight
Yeah, because it's hard to tell.
differences. It's
Just
hard
wanna-
to tell on the scale.
And you can come back, you know, because one's smaller than the other, and just let me know.
I would say
Because
that's consistent.
a kilometre or two can look different on those sides of sea.
So if you,
You'd help me out.
do you want me to? Well, if you superimpose that onto the Narromine, right maps.
While you're doing that, I just want to try and make sure that the minister had not endorsed a different study corridor to the one which you're presently investigating. And this is by no means any slight against Minister Chester, not at all. Chair, so you don't have to beat me up on that. As I said, I'd rather have him back.
So, Senator, I'll take on notice the full the
Okay.
specific details.
Yes,
but
of course.
In broad terms, I believe the two maps that you're referring to, while presented differently, show a similar alignment.
But we
We
will,
will take that on notice
we
to
need to take it
confirm.
on.
Yeah, no,
notice.
take it on those. No, I understand that. Well, why don't you take it on those and come back to me, okay? But I'll just clear this, Mr Kennedy, did your department wrote that brief? Okay, yeah, Mr Yeaman, you're saying,
That's
yeah?
correct.
Relying on the advice upon advice of the ARTC, so,
And as I said, I'd need to confirm 100%, but it
Yep,
was
sure.
our own view, it was our own advice.
that's all right, but Mr Fullerton
we
was
would
there
have
too.
drawn
If
on
it was-
ARTC.
Sure, if there was any difference, he'd jump up and clarify it, I'm sure.
But to be clear, Senator, when the department puts its name to the brief, we take responsibility for the brief.
That's all right. No, I understand, While you're at it then, can you tell us what responsibility did you take for the Minister having approved, if that's the case, the route which was either not recommended by this agency or for the agency now acting without ministerial consent in studying the preferred route corridor? So it all comes back to, once you've blown it up, if you come back and tell me they're exactly the same, I'll stop the question.
Well, some documents have come to the table. Does that assist?
It's just some
Because we'll take the time just while you
It's very
have
clear.
a look at it.
There's,
Senator, if it helps, during the lunch break, we'll
Yeah, that's right.
try and spend a little time just to confirm
All
and
right.
answer that question you've just asked.
Righto.
But
Does
that is my...
that document that you've just received, does that overcome the document problem that we've been
Yeah, this is the
labouring?
document we've been working with. We have some compiled copies for others just to have for reference. But
Yeah, but are the documents in there, firstly, the documents that Senator Stirl's relying on, the ones that are too small, do they appear in that brief?
They're the same thing, Senator.
Okay,
so
Senator Stirl, why don't you, these good folk now have got the fully blown size, why don't you direct them to where the focus of your
all right,
question
well, let me
is?
get back to, are those maps exactly the same? The same route? If you're not in a position to determine that yet, Chair, I'll just have to wait.
I would like to come back, Chair, and Senator,
No, let's
during
do it
lunch break
properly.
and just to confirm that.
If I had the ability to say overlay that's as clear as the nose on the end of the face, I would say we don't need to, it's there, but it'd help me too and help the committee.
All right.
Groovy? Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, well,
Madam Deary.
well,
So I'll leave it at
no,
that
but-
until we
Sorry, didn't
come
I
back.
explain to you? When they're finished, it goes to the government for 30 minutes if they choose. Yeah, well, that's what happens. The government just. So how about you let me manage the committee? It goes to the government for 30 minutes, then it goes to the independents for 15 minutes, and then it comes back to the Greens, right? So we'll just see who's what. You may have fallen on your feet here. Let's just wait and see. Senator McGrath, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment, but I probably will.
Senator Brockman. Right, so I've just got some in relation to the alignment coming into Toowoomba. The last time we had an exchange about this, Mr Fullerton, it was a bit exercised. And at that stage, you were looking at engineering challenges, you were looking at social impact challenges, and you were looking at environmental challenges. So the route wasn't locked and loaded because it was subject to successful outcomes with respect to those examinations. Can you let the committee know now whether you've been able to advance that at all?
Yes, we have, Senator. We've now obviously appointed our engineering consultants who have been working on the Condamine floodplain. That's where the priority work is.
Correct.
Between the border to Gowrie. Given the concerns that were raised by landowners and the community around flooding. And just before Christmas we did, and the original concept design across that 13-kilometre floodplain, I think assumed about a bit over 1.5 kilometres of bridge and the rest formation with culverts. When the original
Well, at that
when the original
stage,
estimate-
you're
so-
talking about bank and culvert
Bank,
versus
So,
the...
you know, the
just
work-
Well, 1 second, Mr
Sorry.
Fullerton, because you'll provide me with information I don't need. Versus you were looking at the other concept, and there'd only been one other place in the world, as I understood it from your evidence, where they had used the other design. That was in California. And so the jury was out as to whether you were going to go bank and culvert versus what's the wide span?
Yeah, bridge viaduct or bridge.
Viaduct system, right? So
no.
you at that stage you weren't in a position to determine whether it would be viaduct or bank and culvert. Have you solved that problem?
Yes, I was about to go on to say, Senator, that with the engineering work that we've been doing as part of that accelerated activity, We did produce some preliminary designs before Christmas and we've further updated those. So over about that 13-kilometre crossing now, we think there's about just under 6.5 kilometres of viaduct bridges and also embankment in some locations with culverts that are 900 to 1.2 metres, 900 millimetres to 1.2 millimetres in diameter. We have consulted broadly with the community around...
Sorry, 1.2 millimetres.
1.2 metres.
Metres, I thought
Sorry.
you said millimetres. there for a
1.2
second.
metres. So that's come out of the design, looking at both the historical flood levels that were validated with a lot of the communities in that area who have also got their own hydrologist that has been appointed, and we've identified, the floodplain that has historically occurred for certainly in 100-year floods. So the design's really got to the point now that preliminary design has extended the viaducts to probably 50% of the width of the Condamine to ensure we manage the flows, the velocity of the flows, as well as the hydrology, the height of the floodwaters themselves. So that's how there's still got further work to be done to validate that final design, but we have identified that there's certainly further length of bridges that are required for that Condamine crossing.
So you had some very exercised landowners on the Condamine floodplain. From memory, it was in their hundreds.
The Condamine floodplain, we had about, if you look at it, on the Condamine, there's not too many at all, but between border to Gowrie, I think there was about 1,300 landowners affected for that whole study corridor, but the Condamine is a smaller number than that.
Yeah, but it's still in the hundreds. Farms affected by this section across the floodplain.
I think if it's only 13 kilometres, it wouldn't be a couple of hundred. There may, if you think about downstream effects and so on.
I'm talking about
absolutely.
those who formed a group who felt that they'd be affected potentially by the design across the floodplain. My memory was it was 380 or so landowners who said this will affect me, therefore I'm interested.
Yeah.
Can you take that question?
I'll take that on notice.
So I'm sure you know that number. And they were really cranky, as you know, Mr. Fulton. So they were like a 9.9 cranky out of 10. Where are they at the moment? Have you been able to close the relationship gap and they're happier?
Well, I think we've done a lot in terms of explaining some of the engineering solutions for this, and particularly around agreeing on what the flood levels look like, how many properties are affected in a normal course of events, and we've been able to compare those models with the expert advice that they've been receiving. So I'd like to think they're much happier.
But you don't know.
Look, I don't know, but we're talking with them all the time. The feedback I get is that at least we're now producing material.
Yeah, but someone must know whether they've put their muskets down.
Well,
someone must know.
Well, there's still
in your organisation.
We meet with them every week, virtually. We've got two consultative committees that are in place now for the Southern Downs and the.
So who meets with them?
Our.
No, by name, my name, Fred, Betty, John.
Rob McNamara is our project director.
Is Rob with us?
Sorry?
Is Rob...
Is he in
Mr.
the
Fullerton,
building?
is Rob in the building?
No, he's not
Rob's
here.
not in the building?
No.
How about you give Bobby a call over the lunch break and ask him how things are going on the Condamine floodplain with the relationship with the agitated farmers?
Well, Senator, I have spoken to him last week when I was in Brisbane, and, I think the consultation's going along well with those farmers as we still explain the deep design.
Well, that could have been a good answer about 4 questions ago when I asked you whether you'd closed the relationship gap.
Well,
so you're evident. I'm the one confused, not you, Mr. Fullerton. Your evidence now is that you have closed the relationship gap with the farmers on the Condamine floodplain, and they are happier than they were.
I think we have improved the relationship with the farmers because of the additional work we've been doing around the engineering, Senator.
I think it would be good to, rather than just, I think it would be good for you to perhaps speak to Mr. McNamara if possible over the lunch break to come back and confirm that. I think that would be what
All right. Well,
the chair is after.
let's cut you loose to do that. Sorry.
Sorry, Chair, if it's possible, now we had some time just to look at the documents, there's a
Yeah,
number of
but
documents here.
we're over lunch, so
Okay.
people
I'd
plan
like
their
to
lives.
clarify one point if possible.
So we're now at a lunch break that'll take us to 1:30, and so that there's no confusion about what happens then, the government will complete their time if they choose to, which is about 20 minutes. Then we go to the independents, and the mark has been taken by Senator Patrick, who said that he only wants a few minutes, and then we'll go to the Greens. So that allows everyone to manage their time and life post-lunch. So thank you, and we'll suspend now until after lunch.